wanted to spend a few minutes just giving you updates on some of the projects that we're working on, because I work at Rose Tree Consulting. We're agronomists, we're nutrient management plan writers, we're precision ag people. That's our daily business. But in addition to doing that, I also serve as the executive director of the PA4R Nutrient Stewardship Alliance. And we do a lot of work throughout the whole Chesapeake Bay region on cost share projects and getting money into the hands of farmers and agribusinesses that you can adopt new practices. And so some of you may have been familiar with our National Fish and Wildlife Foundation Most Effective Basin project. Matter of fact, Lester participated in this over the past couple of years. And we have one more year left in this project. Right now, we're sitting on a pool of money of about $125,000 that we'd really like to find manure injection partners that we can give that money to help them increase their injection businesses. The problem with the Most Effective Basin monies is that you can only use it in certain areas. So these lighter highlighted areas right here are the only areas that you can use Most Effective Basin money in. And these Most Effective Basins are watersheds that have a little bit more higher risk for pollution and nutrient runoff. And so National Fish and Wildlife Foundation wants to put a little bit higher focus on getting BMPs on the ground in these watersheds. So if you're a manure hauler and you're working within these watersheds, you may be able to participate in this program. And how it works is you contract with the project and you say, okay, in 2025, I think I'm going to inject 2,000 acres. And it's going to cost me $20 an acre to inject. You're going to sign a contract with the project, and they're going to take $40,000 and put it into an account for you. And as you do your 2,000 acres of injection, you submit your receipts, and the money gets released to you. And so we've been doing that over the past couple of years. We've had a fairly good success. One of our goals is obviously to get more of your customers to adopt injection and get more acres of it on the ground. But we will also want to be able to use this kind of cost share to help you all invest in new technologies. These manure injection equipment things are not cheap. And if you're going to take the leap of faith to purchase one of them, we want to give you a little bit of reassurance that the money is there for you to help pay for your equipment. One of the downsides of working in this project, whenever you're doing projects with the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, is you have to have general liability insurance. That prohibited a number of the manure haulers in the MEBs from participating. But if you do have general liability insurance and you're operating in these projects, please reach out to Leanne Shirk. Leanne is floating around here. I don't know where she ended up going, but she's around. Leanne is one of our nutrient management plan writers. She takes care of all of our REAP applications. She does CAFO permitting. She is our lead for this project, and she's been working with a number of the manure haulers participating in this project to get their contracts designed, get them signed, and get that money allocated to them. So we've got one more year in this project, and the 4R Alliance recently got a second manure injection. That's more information on how the MEB works. I forgot I had that slide in there. We have a second manure injection project. Oftentimes when you do these type of projects, you do a project that is designed to see if it works. Right? We want to design a smaller project and we want to see if it works, proof of concept type thing. And then once we prove that it works, we want to take it to a larger scale. And our next manure injection, what INSR, Innovative Nutrient and Sediment Reductions, is what INSR stands for. So that's our project over the next couple of years, and it's going to be the same thing, except now it's Chesapeake Bay wide. Right? We're no longer limiting you to specific watersheds. If you're hauling manure within the Chesapeake Bay region, and you're doing manure injection, you can use a project like this to set aside a pool of money for yourself to pay for that injector as you do those injection acres. Other things that are going to come out of this particular project, I think I have a slide here just talking about what we want to do. The 4R Alliance and Rose Tree Consulting, we spend a lot of time doing education and outreach. We're going to continue to do that. You guys probably know us as we're the ones who come to the manure field day here and we do education and outreach, but we're also the people that go to policymakers, EPA, the Chesapeake Bay Commission, and we educate them on the things that you guys are doing and the technologies that you're adopting. And so this project is going to allow us to do some educational outreach to policymakers and EPA and different regulatory agencies to help them understand how manure injection can be used and can be adopted to reach water quality goals. Second thing we want to do is we want to incentivize the purchase of manure injection equipment. When we designed this project, we put enough money in our pool that we can help pay for about 12 injection units. And it's going to be through that contracting process where you contract with the project, we set the funds aside for you as you inject, the money gets released to you, but we have enough money in the project to pay for about a dozen injector units. We're going to continue to pair advanced nitrogen management on manure injection acres. We feel from a Rose Tree Consulting standpoint that if your customers are going to be adopting manure injection, one of the best ways they're going to get their money back is understanding how nitrogen is flowing on their farm and reducing the overall fertilizer inputs that they have. If they're going to invest in injection, we got to get a return on investment somewhere. Easiest place for us to help you get there is looking at advanced nitrogen management. And the last thing we're looking for, and it's a big ask, but we're looking for 2 to 4 farms somewhere in the Chesapeake Bay region that we can do an advanced, in-depth work with our agronomists and you and your manure hauler, your nutrient management plan writer. But we want to be able to drill down into some fields and understand exactly what your benefit is from manure injection and quantify it, put some dollar values to it. We want to be able to use that in all of our educational purposes, that we can educate other farmers and we can educate policymakers and move the injection conversation along. And like I said, open to the whole Chesapeake Bay watershed, so we're fairly excited about that. We have a few $1 million in this project right here, so just excited to get it going over the next couple of years. The manure injection paired with advanced nitrogen management. We started doing this through the first project I talked about, and we started at Rose Tree. We use a product called AdaptN, which is a decision tool, nitrogen decision tool. You put all of your background data into AdaptN, and it tells you how much nitrogen you lost and how much nitrogen you need for your crop. We like it because it just gives us real-time information on what nitrogen is doing in your soils, and we can also pair that into variable rate applications if somebody's looking to do variable rate applications. So we can actually take the data and the layers that Mark was sharing with us earlier. You go out and make an as-applied map, and maybe there's a little bit of variability in those applications. We can take that map, put it right into our system, put your manure analysis in, create a nitrogen availability layer that then we can use to make variable rate nitrogen applications. But how the system works, like I said, it's a decision support tool. You're going to use it to calculate nitrogen availability for manure, just like your nutrient management plan. How AdaptN and these other nitrogen decision support tools work is they're very, very similar to a nutrient management plan, right? But something that it also does is it estimates nitrogen loss from each of your soil types, and it incorporates rainfall and temperatures. So if you apply manure on May 1st, and it rains on May 2nd, you're going to get a different nitrogen availability factor than if you apply manure on May 1st and it doesn't rain until June 10th. That happened, right? So this program here just allows us to incorporate rainfall and temperature, and like I said, it does allow for flat rate and VR applications. I like it because it allows us to have better conversations on nitrogen. We're going to take a lot of our background information here. This is a farm in Berks County. I don't know if you can see it from the very back, but there's darker shades of blue and lighter shades of blue. We had done this as this is a zoned field, so we've got different yield goals in the dark blue than we have in the light blue. And we established those zones through yield data and some other methodology. But then we put in all of his background information. He wants to get 180 bushel corn. He's injecting 4,500 gallons of dairy manure, plus he's putting pen manure on. He's doing 15 gallons at side dressing. We put the dates of all those in because when you're looking at nitrogen loss and nitrogen availability, the dates of those applications matter a whole lot, because the date that you apply versus when it rains next has a huge influence on nitrogen availability. We put in the previous crop, put in your cover crops, put in your soil organic matter, your planting date, your maturity. Why are we putting maturity in there? Because a 90-day corn hybrid has a different uptake curve for nitrogen than a 120-day corn hybrid does. And so it's important to understand that depending on the maturity of your corn, it's going to have a different nitrogen uptake pattern, and we're going to manage it a little bit differently when it comes to fertilizer. And then the populations, right? If you have a population of 28,000 versus a population of 36,000, you're artificially putting a lot more competition into that field that we need to take account for when we're trying to figure out what the nitrogen fertilizer rates are. Next thing that AdaptN does, and this is kind of fun, it's going to tell you what your average loss was, right? Active loss pathways at any one time, any day of the year, right? All these things are working in your field. Volatilization, leaching, immobilization, surface runoff, denitrification. That's how you lose nitrogen from your fields. And depending on the day, depending on the temperature, depending on the rainfall, surface runoff may be a bigger deal, immobilization may be a bigger deal, volatilization, it just depends on the day. This program kind of allows us to break it down. Are we getting leaching losses or are we getting volatilization losses? Right, so gas loss, this upper one, this would be volatilization. It would also be denitrification. Leaching losses is obviously leaching losses. But this is, like I said, a site in Berks County, but you can kind of correlate his big gas loss right here, you see that? And how it lines right up with rainfall, right? That's no surprise to anybody. You have this huge volatilization gas loss event right here that happens sometime in June, right? That's all rainfall, right? And you can kind of follow it across and look at every step of nitrogen loss that he has through the year, and a lot of times it correlates with precipitation. That's real. We did I think we did about 4,000 or 5,000 acres of this last year, and one of the things that we can take home from this particular program is it does a very good job of telling us how precipitation is affecting loss, right? And it's not so much that you have gas loss that sometime in June we're getting volatilization losses, because we're putting a little bit of fertilizer here at planting. This particular one did not get any side dress application, so there's no side dress here in June, right? So no side dress, no fertilizer application in June, and yet we're seeing that giant spike in gas loss, right? So it's not volatilization. That's actually denitrification that is driving nitrogen loss in this field because of that rain event. You're going to have denitrification losses within 24 or 48 hours after a rainfall if more than 50% of your pore space is covered with water. All right? So now we can start using these things and saying, okay, maybe your denitrification losses are worse than your volatilization losses. Let's make sure we get something in your fertilizer, a nitrogen stabilizer or whatever, to try to figure out how we're going to solve this. We've been able to use this to figure out exactly what a cover crop is worth to somebody. If they're applying manure in December and you see a bump in nitrogen loss after that application, we can quantify what the nitrogen losses are from that. So it's just a way that we can use technology to have better conversations with our customers, how they're managing their fertilizer, where they're positioning their cover crops, and where they're positioning their manure applications, whether it's fall, winter, or spring, and how those decisions are affecting overall nitrogen loss. I think I got 2 more slides here, Eric. This is an interesting one. It shows soil contributions to nitrogen fertility. So we're looking at soil mineralization. Most of the soils that we studied over the past couple of years have a ridiculous propensity to produce nitrogen. This is a soil in northern Berks County that the model is telling me that it has the ability to mineralize 200 pounds of nitrogen per acre. Who believes that? That's a crazy number. I don't know that I believe that. I don't know that I would trust it. But it makes you think that if you have this amount of nitrogen coming into your system late in the season, that when you're out there doing late season plant samples, it should show up. So it's an interesting way that you can calculate and see the difference of how your soils are reacting with the soil health practices that you're doing. I think I have one more. This is kind of the end of what we do with the nitrogen modeling. This particular field, he over-applied nitrogen by 50 or 60 pounds. Again, we were going for a 180 bushel yield goal. We injected 4,500 gallons of manure. We put 15 gallons on at planting. We got 180 bushels. We had pretty good yield last year. And the model is telling us that we had 50 to 60 pounds more nitrogen that we needed. 100 pounds was lost through leaching and volatilization and denitrification. And soil has a capacity to produce a ton of nitrogen that maybe we're not giving it credit for. All we're telling our customers from this is that we need to start having better conversations of how we're managing our fertilizer and thinking about the timing of that application and the rates of the application that we're doing, because there is opportunity when you're injecting to cut back on your fertilizer, but do the legwork to figure out how much you can reduce by. So that's kind of what we're working on with these projects. Over the next couple of years, you're going to see more information coming from us on decision support tools, on precision ag and how it relates to nitrogen management and manure hauling. If there are numbers that you guys want to see, if there's any kind of strip trials that you're looking to have put out, we can help you do all that. We just want to make sure that when we have meetings like this, we've got solid numbers that we're presenting to people that we can back up. So thank you all. I'm going to turn it over to Eric, and we're going to have a blessing for lunch.